Welcome to the 18th chapter of the book of John. The 17th chapter, Jesus finished his discourse with his disciples, and now he will be leaving. It begins in verse 18. It says, "These things having said, Jesus came forth with his mathetes, disciples. Mathematic is a derivative, on the other side of the rushing stream of the Kidron, where there was a garden into which he and his disciples entered there." We'll go up to a map of the area, and we can see here the temple is up here, and the valley of the Kidron runs alongside of this part of Jerusalem. And right up here over to the top of this area is the Garden of Gethsemane and the Mount of Olives. So this is where Jesus and his disciples went. And Judas, the one delivering him up, knew also the place, for often Jesus gathered together there with his disciples. It mentions it's called Gethsemane, another place. And a topography has to do with a place, a topography, and they're a derivative. So this Judas Iscariot knew where he was at. It mentions more in the other Gospels, the story of Judas in Luke 22, 1-6, of his selling out Jesus for the 30 pieces of silver. Verse 3, "Then Judas, taking the spiron, the cohort, a spire," this is a circling type of a serpentine walking of the troops in a spire. And the cohort was the English translation for that word. And officers from out of the chief priests and Pharisees. These officers were not Romans. They were part of the constabulary of the Jewish rulers in Jerusalem. And archiereon, archi is a chief, and the architect, and iereon, hieroglyphics. The hiero is a priestly hieroglyphics, a priestly writing, and here it's the archiereon, the chief priests, came there with torches and lampadon. We have the lamp and lampadon derivative, and oplon, weapons, the hoplites, the light infantry of the Greeks. That's what they were called, the hoplites. And we get the word oplon. Jesus then, knowing all things coming upon him, having come forth, said to them, "Whom do you seek?" So here's all this crowd of men coming with torches and weapons and making a lot of noise in this nice, quiet garden. And they answered to him, "Jesus the Nazarene." And Jesus says to them, I am he. Ego eimi. Here we see this again. Ego eimi. I am he. And standing by also was Judas, the one delivering him up, and with them. And when then he said to them that ego eimi, I am he, they went rearwards and fell on the ground. They were expecting, probably with the force that they have, to take somebody with a battle. Otherwise they wouldn't have came there with all these men. But yet here he just says it, I'm he. And it just shocked them, and they fell backwards on the ground. And when a lot of people meet Jesus and realize who he is, they get shocked and almost fall on the ground because of the power that's in this man, God. Again, then they asked him, "Whom do you seek?" He asked them. And they said, "Jesus the Nazarene." Jesus answered, "I said to you that I am he. If then you seek me, let these go. That the word which he said should be fulfilled, that of whom you have given to me, perish not from out of them, not one." Now, this nobody knows where he is referring to here, because it's not in the scriptures. I haven't been able to find it, and looking, and it's not mentioned anywhere in any of the cross-references. And Simon Peter then, having a sword, drew it and hit the bondman of the chief priests and cut off his right ear. And the name to the bondman was Malchus. There's a lot left out in John, the whole part of Judas betraying with a kiss, and that how this Malchus ear was healed by Jesus. And Jesus said then to Peter, "Put your sword into its thecane," apothecary. And some place you put the apothecary is a holder. In the English derivative is more towards pharmaceuticals. "Put your sword into its thecane, its holder. The cup which the Father has given to me, should I in no way drink it?" Of course, Simon doesn't know that this was. It just went over their heads. They didn't understand it, and he's ready to defend the Lord in this place. Then the Spira and the Heliarchos. Archos is a ruler, and the Heli is 1,000, a Helia. And the cohort and the commander and the officers of the Jews seized Jesus and bound him. So now Jesus is tied up, hands tied up, and they take him. And they took him away to Annas first, for he was father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was chief priest that year. We'll go to Wikipedia, has some articles on Annas here. You can go to it and find out about him, and go to Wikipedia and just type in Annas, Annas, and you can read all about this person. And Caiaphas, he was only in his 30s. You think of an old man generally in all these pictures that people have painted over the years, but he was actually a fairly young man. And the Caiaphas, all about him in the Wikipedia articles. And it was Caiaphas advising the Jews that it is advantageous for one man to perish. And this is a cross-reference to John 11:50. We'll go to it and we'll read it. And it says up here, it starts 49. "And a certain one from out of them, Caiaphas is the Greek pronunciation, being chief priest that year, said to them, 'You do not know anything, nor reason that it be advantageous to us that one man should die for the people, and not the nation should perish, the entire nation should perish.' But this he said not of himself, but being chief priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus was about to die for the nation. And not for the nation only, but that also the children of God, being dispersed, should be brought together into one." So, this was the Caiaphas that made that earlier prophecy, and it's taking place. Jesus is being led to him. And Simon Peter followed Jesus and another disciple, who people believe is John, the writer of this gospel. Alos is another, parallel, something alongside. And that disciple was Gnostos, the Gnostics, the knowers, was known to the chief priests and entered together with Jesus into the courtyard of the chief priests. So apparently John and Peter went after him and went into that area. And Peter stood by the door outside. The other disciple then came forth, who was known to the chief priest, and spoke with the doorkeeper, and she brought in Peter. And Peter enters in, and says then the maidservant doorkeeper to Peter, "Are you not also from out of his disciples of this man, of the disciples of this man?" And that one is Peter, "I am not." And the bondmen and the officers were standing, having made a charcoal bed, for it was chilly, and they were heating themselves. And Peter was standing with them and heating himself. It's a cold night. And so time goes by. Then the chief priests asked Jesus, and now it goes back to the meeting between Caiaphas, Jesus. They asked Jesus concerning his disciples and concerning his didakis, teaching, didactics, English derivative. And Jesus answered to him, I in an open manner spoke to the cosmo, the world. I at all times taught in the synagogue, transliteration, and in the iaro, the temple, where at all times the Jews come together. And in crypto I spoke nothing, in secret, cryptic, I spoke nothing. Why do you ask? Ask the ones hearing what I spoke to them. Behold, these know what I said. And in his having said these things, one of the officers standing by gave a slap to Jesus, having said, Thus you answer to the chief priest? And Jesus responded to them, If ill kakos, kaka, I have spoken, testify concerning the kaku. But if kalos, well, why do you flail at me? Kalos, we have a kaleidoscope, a kali, good. And Annas sent him, being bound, to Caiaphas the chief priest. And Simon Peter was standing and heating himself. So apparently they're brothers. If you want to read that Wikipedia article, Caiaphas and Annas and his priestly family. So now we're back to Peter, warming himself. Then one said to him, Are you not also from out of his disciples? And that one denied and said, I am not. Says one from out of the bondmen of the chief priest, being a relative of whom Peter cut off the ear of Malchus. And it doesn't mention that Malchus anywhere other than this part where his ear was cut off. But it's a possibility he became a Christian because they mention his name and know the things that happened. And then he says, Did I not see you in the garden with him? Oh, Peter's in trouble. Whoa, he cut this guy's ear off. And this man recognizes him. So now Peter's starting to get afraid, just like when he was walking on the water coming towards Jesus and he took his eyes off of Jesus and started looking at the waves and got scared and started to go under. Now he's going under here. Then again Peter denied, and immediately a rooster called out. And they led Jesus from Caiaphas. Now this rooster calling out was the prophecy that Jesus gave before the rooster called out. He would deny him thrice. They led Jesus from Caiaphas, Caiapha, onto the praetorium. There's a transliteration, Roman area. And it was morning. And they did not enter into the praetorium that they should not be defiled, but that they should eat the Passover. This could possibly be in the Tower of Antony that was right next to the Temple Mount. So they didn't want to go into this area and be defiled with uncleanness, touching it. So then they wanted to eat the Passover, which was happening the next day. So they didn't go in, but they somehow sent them in, or I guess it says here Pilate came forth to them and said, What charge do you bring against this anthropon, man, a kategorian, a category, a charge? And they answered and said to him, If this one was not doing evil, and there's a kakopios, a pieo, poet, pieo, a doer, a doing, 4160, but in these two kakopios, pios, doing evil, we would not have delivered him up to you. Then said Pilate to them, now we're to this Pilate, now we can go back down to Wikipedia, and we'll see here the next one after Caiaphas I have linked is Pontius Pilate. It's a lot of good information in Wikipedia about who Pilate is and stories and things like that. Might want to check that all out. And Pilate said to them, You take him, and according to your nomon law, judge him. Astronomy, a law. Then the Jews said to him, To us it is not allowed to kill anyone. They couldn't kill anyone, so it had to be a Roman, that the word of Jesus should be fulfilled, which he spoke, signifying by what death he was about to die. He was going to be lifted up, and by the nations, which were the Romans. Pilate entered then into the praetorium. So now he goes inside and called Jesus and said to him, so Jesus goes in, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered to him, "From yourself do you say this, or you ask this, or others spoke to you concerning me?" Pilate answered, "Much less am I a Jew. Your nation and the chief priests delivered you to me." Ethnos, a nation, not Gentile, as in the King James. "What did you do?" There's the 4160, Pieo. And Jesus answered, didn't say what he did, but he said, "My kingdom, of Vasilia, the basil plant, basilica, is not from out of this cosmos. If my kingdom was from this cosmos, my iparete, my officers would have been struggling that I should not be delivered up to the Jews." Interesting. It mentions the Jews and not the Romans. "But now my kingdom is not from here." And then Pilate said to him, "Then you are a king." Jesus answered, "You say it, for I am a king. I have been born for this, and for this I have come into the world, that I should testify to the truth. Everyone being from out of the truth hears my voice." Akui, acoustics, and phonies, a phone. Pilate says to him, "What is truth?" And this having said, again he came forth to the Jews and says to them, "I find no fault in him. But it is a custom with you that I should loosen to you one at the Pascha, the Passover. Do you want me then I should loose to you the King of the Jews?" And they cried out then again, all saying, "Not this one, but Barabbas." And Barabbas was a robber. So the Jews chose the robber over God in the flesh. Israel is again a nation, and it's rejected Jesus more or less. Very few people there believe in Jesus. You can watch interviews. I was just watching some the other night. They went and asked a bunch of Jewish people there and what they thought about Jesus, and they all denied Jesus, that he was who he was, made up all kinds of things and stories that they said that he was, and completely denied him. So this is the result. Another place they said, "There's blood be upon us and our children." And so we'll go into this horrible chapter 19 next seminar, and leads to the crucifixion of Jesus. And hope you'll join us, and God bless.